Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Blackout, a 32mm hard sci-fi tabletop wargame from Enemy Spotted Studios. Now, Blackout is a skirmish level science fiction game set in the year 2110 on the colony planet of ABOL, the only colony planet to survive, well, not even survive, to successfully get founded by Earth, which is having some problems. And this is a near future super skirmish, kind of like if you've ever watched any of Neil Blomkamp's, like literally anything, Chappie, District 9, you know, it's a Neil Blomkamp future, basically, Elysium. So you have everything from combat AIs. For instance, this box, the Harlow First Reaction Force, comes with 2 Springbok AIs, which are like a Chappie bot, basically. As well as some conventional infantrymen, some of whom even have like exoskeleton jump sets, sort of like the exoskeletal fighting suit that was in Elysium. So this really scratches my near future kind of combat itch. And in particular, the scope and scale of the game, where you're running everything from like 2 to 4 miniatures as a skirmish on a 2x2 board, up to using maybe 10 miniatures and even combat vehicles called dusters on a 4x4 board. It makes the game kind of infinitely scalable. Now, if you want to check out this rulebook for free, you can. You can go to Enemy Spotted Studios, just download the rulebook because it's available as like a $0 purchase, and be able to check these out for yourself. But they were kind enough to send along a copy of the Harlow First Reaction Force, which I've painted up to do a series of Let's Play games and do the 4 missions from this rulebook as like a cool series. So big thanks to Enemy Spotted Studios for sending these along. And this is the army I'm going to be featuring. Now, the opposing army will be the Manticore, which my buddy Rob is painting. You remember Rob from such great games as Legions Imperialis, Rumble Slam, and Bot Wars, which we've also all covered together. He's been playing Manticore for a bit. Him and his gaming group got the rules down, which means he is going to help me. Although the core rules are fairly simple, he's going to help me with this and bring some like on-table experience to the sort of the being able to show what's possible with another faction. Now, the game size itself works in basically combat units. And before we get too into the rules, what I'm going to do is go through the anatomy of a card here. And the game works on a D10 success-based dice pool game. And you have a skill, which is typically what you're trying to roll. So there's 3 stats on the card, and the anatomy card is how much of your armor you can use. So these are armory requisition points. So for instance, this reaction force assault team can use 2 of the armory unit things. So for instance, during the game, they could use like a boost jump to make a model gain like a jump pack ability, basically, a frag launcher, a micro launcher, different variant equipments. Basically, it's what you have on the pouches, like all the molly strapping on your gear. What are you pulling out? What's in your bat utility belt that you can use during the turn? And that's these little chevrons up top. So per turn, they can use 2. The control team, which is sort of the leadership cadre, they can use 1. You can see they have a slightly better skill. And the AIs don't get any because they're robots. They have built-in hard gear, which is in their unit profile. You have 3 stats. The first one is your skill, so that's what you need to roll or better. Typically it's 6. These are your basic sort of like stat block, which is a 50-50 dice success chance. So you're gonna, anytime you take a skill chest, you roll D10, 6 or better, that's a 50% roll. And then your movement, which is how many inches you move during a turn. So you can see the 2 human units move 4, while the Springbok can move 6 per turn during their movement. It has a 2 action block system, although the 1 action is almost always to reposition and make a move. You can use an additional, you can burn your further action to sprint, and you can also reduce your movement to do things like leaning out, which is a neat kind of mechanic in this game where you gain a lean out token, and then you can, if you only move half or less your distance, you can look around a wall, and you gain a lean out token, which means you can draw line of sight from the token instead of yourself, and you count as being in cover. But it's something miniature games haven't handled very well, and I like that mechanic in here. Then you got your equipments. This guy's got a FAL 32C, both the human units do, 24-inch range. They roll 1 dice, and then CQB in half range, they reroll all their attack dice. Then the FAL 32D has CQB in sustained 1 special rule for shooting, which means target can reroll up to X successful armor D10s when hit by this weapon. So basically, if you succeed an armor roll, then you have to reroll it. And your last stat there is your armor, and that's what you how many dice you roll every time you take a point of damage, or take any damage, and how many what you need to roll to cancel it. So if it's 1, 6, you roll a single dice. If you roll a 6 or better, you cancel the damage that's come through. The Springboks have a 2 dice pool for armor, still needing a 6 or less. Then you have your grunts stat down here, how many grunts are in the unit. So grunts are just the regular guys. They only use the stats in the front of the card. On the back of the card, you could additionally have specialists. So for instance, there's a machine gunner and a team leader in the assault team. So one model is going to have a machine gun, one model is going to be the team leader, and they get separate miniatures in this box. So there's 4 miniatures total, 2 grunts, and then whatever specialists on the back. The control team has a single specialist, and then they have a hacker, which is a specialist 1 with a data spike, and then specialist 2 has a grenade launcher, so a grenade launcher model. And they get to use those additional equipment pieces instead of the weapons on the front of the card, or in addition to the weapons on the front of the card. And then the Springboks, because they don't have any armory stuff, they have a chaff launcher on their shoulder. So every time they get targeted by an Overwatch reaction, they get to just blank it out by burning a chaff. And then they have AI and jump 4. They can always take the jump action, which means instead of making a normal move, you just place them anywhere within 4 horizontally and vertically. They do like the weird AI superhero jump. And these are your forces. Now, games are typically played in a number of unit selections. So it's a point-free selection situation, and you play with either 1, 2, or 3 units. All units are part of your overall combat group, and this is your combat group card. So for the Harlow First Reaction Force, they all gain the special rules in the back of this card, so access to the armory. Their force rule, which is Harlow First Reaction Forces gain +2 movement when sprinting, so they go additional distance when they make the sprint action. And they have battle drills. So assaulters, models in this unit cannot be targeted by Overwatch while repositioning. Chaff, place a smoke chaff token within 6 of this model. And stims, models in this unit get +2 movement during their action. These are additional like once per game abilities you can pop out. And the special rules is just a handy quick tracker for all the special rules on your weapon profiles here. So they just put down cyclic, for instance, for the heavy machine gunner. Can make 1 shoot or ready action after making a shoot action. So you basically could shoot twice or ready, which is like being able to Overwatch and react. CQB, this weapon may reroll all failed shots against the target in half range. Heavy, +1 shot if they didn't move. So for instance, the machine gun is heavy. If it doesn't move, it gets to roll additional attack dice. Medium, this weapon may reroll 1 failed shot in a shooting action. And then sustained, we already went through that. 1 target must reroll up to X successful armor saves when hit by this weapon. So sustained 1, you have to reroll 1 successful save. And that's the core sort of like stat block. So getting into the rulebook, which again, you guys can check out for free. I love that this is a 40-page rulebook, including scenarios and thank you. This is a great rules-light approach to creating a sci-fi skirmish game where what they've done is they've put just the right amount of information on the cards. They've made the granularity is in your card selection, so how many units you pick, and then the actual core game mechanic, it's a bit like Infinity. Everybody is a guy, is a guy, is a guy. So some basic core mechanics. Models are on a 32 mil base unless they're on a big thing like a vehicle or a duster. If you're in base to base, you're in base to base. Terrain can be played in 2D or 3D, so you could use 2D mats if you wanted to. I do have some terrain mats I might try, but I really like my 3D sci-fi terrain, so I'll probably end up using that. They do make a great token set for your ready markers and activated markers, as well as your lean out markers. So those are just handy and available in acrylic. Use some D10s. Measuring distances, measure any time, it's measured in inches. If you're measuring to a vehicle, you measure to their gun or to the hull if you're measuring to it. And then line of sight, any part of the model that can see any part of another model or base has line of sight to it. And then cover, if you're obscured, then you are in cover. Vertical combat, models placed on terrain that's at least 3 inches tall will gain cover from models below them. It's important that players communicate about how vertical terrain is and how it will impact the game. And then movements. To move a model, measure from the same point in the base to the same point in the base when you move it. Obstacles, terrain that's 1 inch or short is called an obstacle, and you lose 2 inches of movement to move over it. Anything higher must be climbed. Going up and down, you can go up and down things like stairs and ladders, but you must end your move with your base fully flat on a game surface. And then finally, leaning out. You can either spend half your movement, or if you don't move at all, you don't even count as moving, and then place the lean out token. Enemy models treat the marker as the leaning out model if they do not have line of sight to the model itself, so you can see the marker instead. Models that are leaning out have cover from any model that can be seen. They can only see the marker and not the actual model, and then remove the marker before the model moves again. And then jump X, models that jump X can jump as movement. The model may be placed anywhere within X horizontally and X vertically without passing through terrain. Combat, we're right into combat. So like we haven't even gone through the game turn sequence. They're basically presenting this stuff in all the what you can do's first and then into the how you play. I wouldn't recommend writing a rulebook like that unless the rules are this streamlined. It works in the case of these rules because it's literally a page, like, and the format is so simple and easy to read, and the language is nice and simple too. It's digestible, and in this case it works. It's not a format I'm usually a super big fan of. So you get shooting and CQC. These are the two different types of attacks. Also rules for using explosive markers. So basic shooting attack is pick a model with your shooting model as line of sight to and within your range. See if it's in cover or not. If you roll a skill check of 2d10, rolling an additional d10 if the target's not in cover, and subtracting a d10 if the target is in cover. So d10 is a shooting skill check, and they are called shots. For each successful target, you take damage equal to your weapon's damage, so like 1 for all these weapons. And then if you do a 10, it's considered an ace in any test, and it counts as 2 hits instead of 1. So basically your dice pool converts into damage. Then you make an armor check, rolling a number of d10 equal to the first number of their armor, and preventing a point of damage for each d10 that rolls equal to or higher than that success number. So let's say I'm rolling a standard shot here. If you're in cover, I'm rolling a single d10. That means there's a 50-50 chance I hit you, and then a 50-50 chance that I break your armor, right, and kill you on your side when you make your save, your armor check. The sustained ability obviously makes it really easy to crack people in cover. They have to reroll their armor saves. And then the CQB ability allowing you to reroll your hit in half distance. That's kind of where you get your personality for models. The Harlow are a close-up brawling faction when it comes to their actual gun equipment. They want to get inside their 12-inch range. They want to be able to reroll their like test to shoot. And then if you're the Springboks there, you make them reroll armor rolls too. CQC, this is your melee stuff. Both models make a skill check. Each model success inflicts 1 damage to their model in CQC, ignoring armor checks. So the way they make melee super dangerous is, obviously, you can go for the vital bits. You can snap necks. You can break arms and stuff like that, so there's no armor check to try and stop it. The model with more successes applies their damage first. So you're rolling simultaneously, but whoever got the most success goes back and forth. If this would destroy the other model, then they don't take any damage. If players roll an equal number of successes, then the player with the highest dice roll of a d10 wins. So it's a bit like Infinity, where like if you've rolled an ace, you know what I mean, if you rolled your 10, then you're going to break the tie and get to apply your damage higher. When a model's destroyed in CQC, the CQC ends and the player proceeds to the next CQC. So I like that because it's a very decisive, quick way of handling hand-to-hand combat. And it does feel kind of like what you would see in those movies where you've got your like, you know, whatever your quasi-futuristic Krav Maga is that's snapping people's necks, and you're getting in there with your K-bar and you're stabbing through the joints and armors. Basic rules for throwing explosives: you target the ground, then you target things nearby, and then right into game setup. So how do you build a game? Now this is where we kind of resume a more standard rulebook flow, where they go into the temporal stuff, where put your models down, start activating your models. So setting up a game, 1 group, 2 group, or 3 groups. So a single group would be one of these, right? So a group is considered to be a number of units. So a Harlow First Reaction Force card is all of these. So this is a single group. It's put on a 2x2 or 3x3 foot table, and it's 9 models in this group. If you add another group, right? So for instance, a Duster could be its own group, then you would add to the game table size. So like 2 groups would be a 3x3 table, 3 groups would be a 4x4 table. 3 groups could be up to like 30 models, you know what I mean? If I was taking this 3 times. Once players have decided their game size, they will build their groups, and then pick a scenario. Players need to choose a scenario. There's several scenarios beginning on page 26. Scenarios will tell players how to set up as the game has any special rules, like what the hard points are, things you're trying to assault. And then arrange the terrain. Deployment edge, if you have the special rule inserting in your mission, you walk on from that edge. Otherwise, you roll off and then the person will deploy first. The player rolls the highest, picks their deployment edge first. The other player takes the opposite edge. When models do not start the game on the game table, they insert by walking on from your board edge. And then it's a simple 2-phase system of operations and execution. Operations, pick up all your markers, so any of your markers where you're exhausted or activated. Engaged, sorry, is the word this game uses. And then ready is if you're holding an action to respond to somebody. Then determine initiative, roll a d10, re-rolling the same number. Player that rolls the higher number will activate a unit in the execution phase first. And then activating, pick a unit to activate, and start with the player that won the initiative. And then end a round, the execution round ends once both players have activated all their units. And after that ends, a new round begins. When you activate a unit, units with an activation marker cannot activate. Units with no remaining models cannot activate. And then you reposition first. Units may make a move, an action. Once every model is moved, each model must make one action, resolve them one at a time. So like if you have 4 models in a unit, everybody moves, then they each take an action in order. And the actions are shoot, ready, or sprint. Models may shoot a target. Ready, the model gains a ready token. Sprint, they make a move. And when making actions, enemy models may react. Reactions are covered under 7.0. Reactions are things like juke. You can put yourself in cover by like diving. You can also overwatch, which is shoot somebody who moved, or you can like basically quick draw on somebody who's shooting at you and shoot back. Return fire, I think it's called. And then activation marker. After all active models have finished their actions, place an activation marker next to the unit to show it's activated in the round. You like to put 1 marker down because they're all 1 unit. And that's it. And then reactions. Making a reaction, a model unit that hasn't activated yet, and models with ready tokens can make reactions. So if you don't have any actions at all, you can react. But models with make a reaction, then they gain an engaged token. So if you come at me and I want to shoot back at you while you're shooting me, I will then not be able to activate later in the turn because they're going to count as engaged. But not all the models, just the models that have reacted, right? So if there's 4 models in a unit, one of them shoots back because they haven't activated yet. Only that model gets the engaged token, and when the unit activates later on, they're the only ones that won't do anything because they're basically busy prior in the turn. So you can return fire, shoot back at someone that shoots you. It's basically the same as in combat. Whoever rolls the most successes applies their damage first, and then if you roll higher than your opponent, you would break the tie if you both get the same number of successes. If you die, you don't take damage back. And then Overwatch reaction. Any model can make an Overwatch reaction to shoot an enemy model when it ends its action or ends a movement that places it farther than half its movement value in their line of sight. So if you're moving within, you can't Overwatch basically if you're within like 2 or 3 inches in the case of my guys, because there's not time. They're too close, right? So if they charge into melee with you, then you're surprised. And then juke, when targeted by a shooting attack action, an infantry model can gain an engaged token to gain cover from the shooting model. You just get cover automatically. Now cover automatically becomes a hard shot, so you go down to 1 dice to attack with. And then, yeah, there's some combat examples. Some additional rules like making a data attack. So if you have someone with a data spike, they can take a data attack action where you give a pinned marker to anybody in the table. And a model with a pin marker must remove their pin marker instead of moving. So it basically just like scrambles them. They don't know what's going on. They freeze up when it's time to reposition. Some rules for vehicles and moving vehicles. Dusters, which are your walkers that can do things like react. So they can fight, juke, and do weak points. Dusters have a front and rear arc. If they get shot in the back, they take +1 damage. And then some basic rules for terrain. Points of interest and hard points. These are for your scenarios. It's a 25 mil point for point of interest. These markers will not impact line of sight in the game unless the players agree that they will. Models are allowed to end their movement with any part of their base on top of these markers. They're basically impassable for ending on top of. And then control points. Before each game, players will gain 3 control points, and they can spend 1 control point to either roll an additional D10 during initiative, allow a unit to benefit from a battle drill. That's where these things up top come from for their activation, or activate another unit after they finish an activation. So chain activate. You have 3 of them for the whole game. And then finally, there's 8 printable burn cards, which were also free downloads on the website. These are basically little special abilities. It's a shared deck, and before the game, you can each draw 3 and have them for the game. A little handy little spice in there, and we're going to print them off for the Let's Play. And then we got our scenarios, and we're going to play through these in order. There's a dockyard assault on a 2x2, so again, this one box will do a single group. Server defense on a 2x2 as well. And then a HVT evac, which is also on a 2x2. I'm going to add another unit to do 0 day, which is a 3x3, and will allow us to hopefully use something cool like a duster to come play with. And yeah, got lots of different special rules for like sneaking in, all the key elements that are on here. There's like drone swarms in the HVT evac, all kinds of other neat little things, and we'll use different models for that stuff. And that's it. At the end we got a quick ref, a little bit on the ABOL and her moons, the different like the different sort of like factions inside the universe they've created here for Blackout. And I'm super excited to play this one because I love a good sci-fi skirmish. More importantly, I like a sci-fi skirmish where the unit build and the force construction is not necessarily less important, but it's it's not the key feature of the game. The key feature of the game is the gameplay mechanics. And it feels like this one's going to thrive on the decisions that get made during the game, how you apply your resources, what your units do during your activations. And it's more of a fire and maneuver game. And I like that it's points free. I love a skirmish game where you have some internal roster organization stuff that you can do by picking different units. But mostly what you're doing during the game is you're applying those units in a way that works, thematically for the army that you're playing. Now there's 2 other factions you can check out, and hopefully you'll be able to see Manticore, obviously, during the Let's Play when Rob comes in for us to play our first game. But you can go to the website right now, download the rulebook for free, and check out the other models. They were all printed in resin as single-piece miniatures, and I just glued in the bases and started painting. And you'll be able to see those models in the Let's Play coming up soon too. But you can obviously see the studio examples on their website. So big thanks for watching. We'll see you from the GMG review, and big thanks to the folks at Enemy Spotted Studios for sending out this copy for me to check out, and for Rob for coming in for doing the Let's Play. Thanks, Tom Ash. Apple Gaming.